This is the Transcend in Life podcast with your host, J.M. Ryerson, taking you from fear to freedom.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to Transcend in Life. I have a very special guest, someone that has been introduced to me recently, and I had a chance to be on her podcast. Kristin Andree has made it her life's work to coach, challenge, and empower others to lead a passion-filled, powerful, and prosperous lives. After a successful career in the financial services industry, Kristin launched the Andree Group, a coaching and consulting firm focused on implementing creative business strategies to help companies and entrepreneurs step up, stand out, and scale their businesses while living their lives to the fullest. Through her coaching, consulting, writing, and speaking, Kristin guides others to harness the power of their unique gifts, to stand proud in who they are, to succeed at the highest levels, and to truly live life. She lives in Atlanta, Georgia, and is incredibly proud of mom of 3 amazing girls. Kristin, thank you much for being here. How are you?
I'm doing good, JM. How are you? Thanks for having me.
It is truly, truly my pleasure. I'm doing great, and I am excited about this conversation. You have a really awesome background, and you have accomplished so many things. I know that you came from the financial services world, and we can definitely talk about that, but you've just morphed it into this amazing consulting and coaching business. Can you give an idea of your professional background and where your story?
Yeah, I mean, it's what's interesting, and it's definitely morphed. I mean, that's a good word to use because I've been in the financial industry working predominantly in that industry for the last 20 years. My background prior to that was in healthcare. So I kind of made a couple career changes, but what's been interesting, it's always been kind of following the fun and following my passions and things that I really enjoy doing. So it's allowed me over the last 30 years of my career to start utilizing my strengths more and being able to stand out and really pursue things that interest me. Because I think when you find a career or a job or whatever you want to call it that you love, it's just easier. I mean, it's more fun. It's honestly more lucrative because you're doing something you enjoy. So it hardly seems like work some of the times. But so I have a healthcare background for about a decade and then went into finance. So I was an advisor and then ran a financial firm. So I think I've kind of held all the seats in that industry, which is a great industry to be in. I still do a lot of work in it, but I'm enjoying the development side.
Yeah, it's so cool that you, like you said, when you love something, it doesn't seem like work. And that sounds so cliche, but that is so true. And we were even talking about it. You have another book coming out, which
Yep.
I like I said, are you crazy? You did another one?
I am crazy. Yeah.
And I mean, to take that on not only once, but twice, and you probably will continue to do that more. Where does that passion and drive come from? Because I mean, I think a lot of people say they want to do something like that, but that's a lot of work that you took on.
It is, but it was fun. And what's interesting with me is I kind of joke that I'm a strategy girl. I like to solve problems. I like to figure out how people can, take something that's really good and make it even better. Or, whether it's making more money, having more freedom and flexibility from a time standpoint, having more enjoyment. That's kind of what I go after is how can I fix things? How can I solve problems? So this book, and then even my first book that came out about 9 years ago, it came from a place of I kept getting the same questions and kept hearing the same either stories or excuses or examples over and over and over again. And when 4 or 5 people are having the same challenge, to me, that's like, all right, we got to dive in and figure out how to address this. And that's really where the book came from, is it was a compilation of a bunch of different areas of people's personal and professional lives that I really was seeing people needed some help with.
So when you're seeing these things, you're seeing patterns happen essentially with the same challenges. What are some of those things that you're seeing that you're like, gosh, I just wish people would see this and then go execute on why? And I know there's a lot to that question, but you and I both have seen people do the same darn thing over and over. And you're like, gosh, people, if you could just not do this. Do you have a specific that you're like, man, I wish people would just see it as clearly as I do?
There's so, I mean, to your point, there's so many, and you see them over and over again, and you want to, you can't really go smack your clients, but sometimes you just want to go, how are you not seeing this? I would say for me, and this applies to personal and professional, what I see a lot of people doing is falling into the people pleaser category. And that could be anything from not really showing up as your full self and really just being somebody you're not, which shows, I mean, that's so easy to spot to me in business if somebody's not authentic. But then I also see people at the same time where the being for other people and the people pleaser means they're following somebody else's goals for them or somebody else's path for their life, or they're picking a career because their parents think they should do that, or everybody in their family's always been in medicine, what have you. And if people stick there, that's why they're unhappy and unfulfilled and get frustrated. And if we can really focus them on what they want and what they want their life to look like and create some intentionality around that, then it's a lot easier to help them execute some strategies that work.
It's pretty amazing because as a 4, 5, 6-year-old, that's not the way, right? They want something, they go do it, but then we become conditioned at some point in their life to start following someone else's path, or at least a lot of human beings do. You clearly have not done that. You have done, based on what I know, is like, this is what I want to do, and I'm going to go get it. But I have to imagine there were some moments of trepidation, or at least maybe doubts that entered your mind. How are you able to overcome and be so strong to do the things that you do? Because I think it's remarkable. I wish more people could do it. But is there a specific, routine that you have? Do you have a specific formula that you follow?
That's actually what this recent book, the You're Not For Everyone book, that's really what made me write it. Because while it seems like this was easy and I naturally did this, I really didn't start figuring this out until well into my 40s. And that to me is just a heck of a lot of time to be wasted. I mean, there's nothing I can do. I can't go back and change my 20s or 30s, but I look back and think, man, I would be so much more fulfilled, so much further ahead financially if I just followed me and what I wanted at 30 or 35 or even 25. But it took me well into my 40s. So like when I find things that work, I start writing them down and teaching other people, which is where the book came from. But yeah, I got started too late. It's never too late, but you look back and you're like, man, I wish I would have learned this lesson earlier. And I had a good career. I have a great family. I'm very blessed with a awesome family of origin that I came from, but still there were things that looking back, I'm like, this could have been enhanced so much more had I just listened to myself.
Yeah, it's interesting though. You're not the only person that's felt that way. It's a lot of times I talk to people that it's like, at 40, it's like, boom, the light went on. It's kind of like going to your 10-year reunion and everybody's trying to look a certain way, still trying to prove X. You go to your 20-year reunion and it's like, everybody's kind of fell into their own, I guess. So I don't know if that's just maturation.
That it gets even more obvious by then, I think so.
Well, you certainly don't look it. You look like you've been, that's something completely interesting about you. If I get this correct, you are a black belt, if I'm not mistaken, someone not to be trifled with.
I have a 2nd degree black belt in Taekwondo. So I started it. It was funny because talking about doing things for other people, I actually started Taekwondo because my daughter did it. And they had kind of a parent class. She's like, oh, Mom, you should come. And I ended up really, really enjoying it. And I competed a lot. And I enjoyed that. I won't say ran its course, but my kicks definitely are not as high as they used to be, but it's interesting. So yeah, I don't look, if anybody sees me or sees me speak or in person, they're usually a little surprised because I definitely don't look like a martial artist.
I wouldn't have put you in that category, but I know not to mess with you. That's for sure. And I'm telling you guys, if you can't see her, if you haven't seen, just sweet as pie. This woman is amazing. I would not think, oh, you know what? This girl could just wrap me up into a pretzel, but she could. There's no doubt about it.
But I don't, try not to do that too often to people.
Well, and the world appreciates that. Let me ask you this. As you've done some of these amazing things, was there, when you come across that moment of fear or you failed, what is your how do you overcome it? How do you say, you know what? Forget you, fear. I'm doing this anyway. And I'm going to approach it, because I see so many people that have the ability that, just like you said, they hit their 40s and it's like, okay, now I feel more comfortable doing it. What was it for you? Was there a specific moment where you're just like, boom, I got this? Or how did that come about?
I would say for me, fear is a real thing for everybody. I'm an overthinker too. So like, even if there's fear, I'm going to overthink every possible way this fear could play out. And that's not unusual. I've seen for people that are really highly driven that the fear creeps in a lot. The successful people I know and that I've worked with, they just push forward anyway. For me, my strategy is I'm a big believer in the people you surround yourselves with. And I have a phenomenal network of friends and colleagues and other coaches and consultants that I, work with and collaborate with for me, I'm not trying to talk myself out of having fear because I'm going to have it. I think it's totally normal for people when something big is presented them that they get a little nervous. I go to my people. I go to my tribe, to my centers, and just say, here's what I'm thinking about doing. I am scared to death. And they are kind of my cheerleaders who kind of push me out there. And I tell my coaching clients the same thing. I'm like, my job is to help you with strategy, but it's also to pat you on the back when you do well, but to dust you off and push you back out the door when you need that push. And I feel like if people have the right people in their circle, that the fear becomes manageable. It doesn't go away, but people can help you use it to your advantage.
Yeah, and here's what I hope the audience heard. You're talking to a world-class coach, you're hearing from her, and she has her own group of people that she's relying on, that she says, hey guys, I'm dealing with this. I need a little support. I need a little input. So it's okay. Not only is it okay, we should all have that tribe that we can rely on. How frequently do you and that group meet up, or is it a specific time, or do you just reach out when you need them?
It's funny because like my tribe, I have several little tribes. My middle daughter was laughing at me about this. Like I have, you have your mom tribe and you have your coaching consultant tribe. And then I have my girlfriend tribe. And it really is situational. I mean, I have a large group of, acquaintances and friends, but my inner circle is pretty small. I mean, it's 10, 12 people tops, in the world. Those people, I call them as needed. I do see them frequently, but if you've got the right people, you don't necessarily have to be face to face. And we're finding this now with, the crazy world we're living in with everything going virtual, is sometimes it's just a late night text, or sometimes it's a phone call to say, hey, you got 5 minutes. And a friend of mine did that the other day. She texted me and goes, do you got a quick minute to chat? And she just needed to bounce some ideas off. And that's what the circle's for. It doesn't have to be a formalized, gathering. Although we do love that. That's fun too.
We may as well dive into it just a little bit. Is this crazy world that we're living in, this virtual world? What are some of the success steps you found so that you can get through it? Because I don't know what our new normal is. I'm not sure on that, but I know that everybody is dealing with a certain emotional thing going on with everything being shut down or being behind closed doors or not being able to hug and touch and do those things. So what are some of the things that you're finding to be useful in this world?
What's been interesting, I feel the quiet is what's been useful. And I know for a lot of people, but I have clients that live in New York and are in teeny little apartments with 1 million people. So they don't get the quiet. But I feel like anytime you can I don't care if it's locking yourself in your bathroom and taking a bubble bath, but just to be present, that's been most helpful for me. Because what's been interesting is anybody that's met me will say I'm an extreme extrovert. Like I have a very large personality. I'm not the quietest person on the planet. But one of the things that I've learned with this, I'm way more introverted than I thought I was. Like I'm truly enjoying the times where I'm not having to be around 100 people, or the quiet has been so good for me. So I think it was in the quiet that I figured that out. So, what I'd encourage a lot of my clients to do is if everything's just going crazy, take 3 minutes and just do a brain dump in a journal and figure out, just get the stuff out. And then once you get the stuff out, you can kind of figure out what will help. For me, it's quiet time. I have some clients that need to have, a Zoom call once a week with their friends. I'm over Zoom at this point. But it's just trying to figure out what works and realizing what works for you may be totally different from somebody else.
Yeah, it is interesting finding whether it's journaling, meditating, taking a hike in the woods. It is different, but I think the point is to find that for everybody. Let me ask you, because I'm really curious I can't wait for the book to come out, but you're not for everyone. I mean, does the title speak for itself? What are we trying to say here? And without giving the entire book away, but what's the book all about?
So it's, the title, it somewhat speaks for itself. So the book is called You're Not for Everyone. And the subtitle is, but you can be for everyone. And so what it's really about is, it is not about saying you're not for everybody and you've just got to cut people out and be mean and not. It's about the fact that you can still be your own unique person and create an intentional life for yourself, personally, professionally, and financially, and still be nice to everybody. I mean, I think you can agree. I think all your listeners would agree. There's some just mean people that have gone a little crazy in these recent months. And I don't get it. For me, I mean, I truly think that everybody, if they truly use their gifts and pursue the things that make them happy, and at the same time are kind to other people and understand that everybody sees things and approaches life differently, we'd all be a lot happier. So the you're not for everyone message is really that I want people to understand you need to be for you, and you need to use your strengths that God gave you, and that you're pushing after that. And if you do those things and are kind to everybody, it works out.
Yeah, there's no doubt there's some bad apples, if you will, or some people, maybe they're just hurt, right? I always say hurt people. And you're seeing that right now because, again, we're not in our normal routine, and people are still adjusting, I think. What is some advice you would give someone as if they're on, let's say, a social media platform, or perhaps they're watching too much news and it's just negative?
Yeah.
How do you kind of make sure? Is that your quiet time that's addressing all of those needs?
It's not even the quiet time for me. I'm really intentional around what I allow into my head, because there's a lot of stuff swirling around that head of mine anyway. Like I said, I'm overthinking everything. I don't watch television. I'm not opposed to it. I mean, my kids will come in and watch Disney Channel, so I can name all the Disney shows, but I purposefully don't watch the news. If I want to find out about, I mean, I'm not uninformed, so I will go to Google and look up. And my own way I do it is, if there's a subject I want to look up, whether it's, the election, the political climate, or COVID or anything, I Google it, I look it up, and I try to find two diabolically opposed media outlets, and I read both articles and I make my own choice. So I limit what comes in from a news standpoint. Social media, I'm a huge social media fan. I love it. I use it all the time. And I will hide somebody's profile in 2 seconds flat if I know they're negative. And I have friends of mine like that. I have friends that they don't know it, so I'm not going to name who they are, but I've totally hidden their profile because like everything they post is negative, and I just don't allow that in my head. I don't allow it in my head. I don't like my kids to see it, and I'm not saying I'm positive all the time, because I'm totally not, but I do limit what my intake is.
Yeah, I think that's smart. Obviously, like you said, you probably go to Fox and then CNN and really figure out what's really happening.
They're opposites. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like they both have their own agendas, right? So let's figure out what is actually happening. And I think that's so hard for people anymore, especially during these times when emotions are running high and they're playing on emotions. I think it's really important what you said is like you are picking and choosing what you're putting in your brain, not being uninformed, not head in the sand, but rather let's be smart about what we're putting into our brains. So you said you'd love social media. And again, the connotation a lot of times, especially I'll say for my dad is like, oh, that Facebook, and he's an older dude that has not embraced it. And that's cool. But there is an amazing component to social media. So what forms are you using and what do you get out of it?
I try to stay positive. And what's funny is I think people look for negativity because I keep my social media feed positive. Now, doesn't mean I haven't gone on a rant, every once a year or something, but I tend to intentionally keep it positive. And I'll have a lot of people comment and say, I really enjoy your posts. You're always so positive. Thanks for being so motivational, which is what my goal is. But then I'll have other people go, well, you can't be this happy all the time. I'm like, I'm not. I'm just choosing not to post the negative stuff. So social media, you get out of it what you put into it. So I look for the positive post. I share funny memes. I like, stories. But what's really big about it, and my favorite thing about it, is I'm a connector. I love connecting with people. I don't like superficial talk. I don't like how's the weather. But I really like to, I like to find out what's going on in people's lives and support them where I can or make introductions where I can. And if people were to use social media for that, then it's not as stressful. I'm not I do have a lot of followers, which is great. And I enjoy interacting with them. So I comment on every one of my comments. If somebody comments on a post, I comment back. And I hope to always do that, because that's where it can be fun. You can build some good relationships, because I have high school friends I haven't seen in 20, 25 years that I still feel like I know, because we're interacting. So it's a cool way to build a relationship.
Yeah, I wish more people would follow that formula. It's like you said, I have my bad days. I'm just not going to dump it all on social media and make it bad, right? It's like, maybe I journal that.
That's what you're circle for, where you can call, like I was saying earlier, have those circle of people. That's who I call. I don't post it on social media, because honestly, this will sound bad, but if I don't know you personally and you're following me on social, I don't need your opinion on what you think I should do about my bad day, because you don't know me. So I'd love to get to know people. So if I'm having a struggle, I'm calling my circle, not posting it online.
That makes a lot of sense. So I'm just curious, somebody that does genuinely have that positive outlook, and you have these process, what does truly inspire you to write 2 books? To me, again, after writing one, I'm highly questioning doing another, although I did get a lot out of it.
Do another one. Yours was great. I think you definitely need to do another.
Well, I appreciate that, but maybe it's the work. Maybe I'm just a little tired. But I'm just curious, what does inspire you to do that? Because I think it's amazing. Like you said, 9 years ago was your first one, and you decide, what, I'm going to do it again. Where does that source of inspiration come from?
I like helping others. I know that sounds cliche, but I get more excited when clients of mine hit goals than probably when I do. And even when I was in financial services, the reason I was a managing director, had a really good sized firm, great advisors. But the reason I stepped down is I wanted to have a broader impact. And, I'm a big StrengthsFinder fan from Clifton, and one of my top 5 strengths is significance. And that just means I want to have a larger impact. So for me, what motivates me is when somebody was like, oh, I read your book and I thought it was awesome, or you really helped me with this. That to me is the biggest reward. So that's why I keep doing it. That's what motivates me. Like feel good stories and people hitting goal. I truly get more excited when my clients hit their goals. Like I'll have some of them text me, anytime they do something good. And it's just like a kid. It's like your own children. So I don't know. I get to be the proud mama with my clients, I guess. That's what motivates me.
That's a cool feeling for sure. I'm curious, because you said significance. What is the significance when you leave this earth that you're like, gosh, this is what I want to be known for? This is Kristin Andree. This is who I am. And this is the significance that I left this earth with.
I would say that I made their life better in some way, however that was. Whether and I'm a challenger too. So I'm not this, when I coach people, it's not all this fluff and all this type of stuff. It was, I want to help them. So that's what, when I leave the earth, I want somebody to say, you know what, my life was better. I had more fun. I made more money and I enjoyed it. So if I could do that for somebody, whether it's one person or a million people, that's it for me. Just making things better for people.
That's a cool goal for sure. Let me ask you, from an author of 2 books, I assume you read quite a bit. What would be the most impactful book? Maybe 1 to 3. Whenever I say 1, people get freaked out. So 1 to 3 of the most impactful books that you've ever read that have really shaped your life.
Okay, so let's see. I'm going to go new or older and then new. When I left for college, my dad gave me a copy, and this was a while ago. My dad gave me a copy of Don't Sweat the Small Stuff. And I still have the copy. I actually mentioned this in the book. I still have the copy he gave me. I probably should have read it over and over again sooner than I did, because that book is, in its simplicity, is brilliant. It's the Don't Sweat the Small Stuff philosophy. That again took me into my 40s. Like I said, I would overthink everything. I was the type that would read an email 98 times to make sure it was worded properly. And I wish I would have paid attention to it sooner. So I think that's had a big impact on me, but it's a book I think I'm going to give it to all of my girls when they're, heading off on their own. And I think it's a book that everybody needs to pay attention to. I wish I would have, paid attention sooner. So that's one of them. Current books of what I'm reading, I would say, well, this was a few years ago, Brendon Burchard, who I love. He wrote High Performance Habits. He just is I've sat in at a bunch of his, webinars and classes and trainings, and he's just awesome. He's just so down to earth and authentic, and what you see is what you get. But his high performance habits really dissects the things that successful people do habitually. That's a phenomenal book if you hadn't read it. So those are probably my two favorites. And then, the Subtle Art of Not Giving an F was a fun read too. That would actually, I just read it and I'm like, yes, because I'm from the South, so I don't cuss a whole lot, and I'm reading that book going, yes, this, but those probably are my three favorite if I had to, off the top of my head.
That's funny. So my dad gave me the same book, which now what you said, when your girls leave, you're going to give it to them. I 100% with my boys. I totally agree. What's funny is Brendan Bouchard we're from the same hometown, 60,000 people. And it's just, his book is really good. There's no question about it.
Yeah. So good.
Let me ask you this. What does the word freedom mean to you? My favorite question to ask. It's truly one of my favorite words, my favorite F word right there. So what does freedom mean for you?
For me, I thought a lot about this because with a financial background, people always talk about financial freedom and what does financial freedom mean to you? So I like you, I look at it the whole life. To me, here's how I define it for myself. I never have to ask another person or my bank account for permission. That's what freedom means to me. Meaning that I make my own choices, my own decisions. I've set up my life to where I get to control my destiny. I get to control who I allow in, who I allow to exit. And then I don't have to ask my bank account, meaning that I always want, if I never have to go to the thing and say, let me pull up my account, see if I can take this trip, buy this pair of shoes, put my child through college, whatever it is, big or small, to me, that's freedom. If I don't have to ask another person or my bank account for permission, that to me means I've granted myself the permission. That's freedom.
That's beautiful. I love it. Let me ask you, what should I have asked you that I didn't know enough to ask that you're like, gosh, dang it, Jam, you should have asked me this?
Oh, gosh. I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know. Well, I would guess maybe the question I get a lot from people is because I am, I have three, I mentioned I have three girls. I'm a single mom. And I always get the question, like, how do you do it all? How do you manage it all? And I think that would be the one I'd ask me, because it's surprisingly, people always think I have some magic formula. And I think my answer to that question is I don't always do it all. I have some days and this is important for people to know, whether it's, me or anybody you're looking at thinking, man, they got it together. There are some days that things just fall apart, and with everybody. And whether, some days I think I'm a fantastic mom. Other days, my kids tell me I'm the worst mom in the entire world. And so I think to understand that everybody has good days and everybody has bad days, and it's not the single day, but that matters is the sum of what you do with them. And it's the fact that you get back up and you try again. And if you can just try to be better than you were the day before, and not better than somebody else or not better than your competitor, but if you can be better than you were yesterday, then I think you're headed in the right direction.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's like, it is pretty simple. You're not competing with anybody else. You're trying to better your life. Who cares what everybody else is doing?
Yeah. And that's that circle thing too, because my closest girlfriends, obviously I have guy friends too, but my closest girlfriends are hugely successful. But what's really cool with our little core group is no one's competitive with each other. Like, everyone to a person is so supportive. And I was telling a client of this, I'm like, if you follow me on social, you'll see the same 6 or 7 people commenting over and over again. I'm so proud of you. I love this. This is great. Because that's what the right circle does for you, is they build you up. So when you do have those bad days, you kind of you have that to go back to say, okay, I've got cheerleaders in my corner here.
I've heard so many people say that, and I have the same rule. It's like, look, if you either bring value to my life or you don't. And if you don't, you're not going to be welcome into that circle. Is your philosophy quite literally that simple, where it's like, you bring value, or if you're the other way, if you're certainly bringing me down, you're out? Do you have a specific formula to your inner circle?
Well, I didn't until this whole quarantine thing. And I would say the last 4 months, I've kind of crystallized it a little bit more. It was not a formal plan, but I told it to a few people and they're like, this makes so much sense. I definitely, like, to your point, if someone is bringing me down or negative, or I will cut them off in 2 seconds flat. I just don't allow the negativity, the cruelty, the unkindness. I don't allow that. So those people will be out. But of the rest of the people, I have my little inner circle. Those are the ones, it's 2 a.m. and I'm freaking out. And who am I going to call? That's that group. And then I have a middle tier that's probably, I call it the grow group, meaning I like this person. Their energy's good. I enjoy being around them, but I don't know them as well. So I want to focus with that group on growing my relationship. And then the third group I call it the group, meaning that I like this person. They're cool. I could be around them in a group, but I'm probably not going to carve out 2 hours of a busy schedule to go hang out one-on-one. They're great people, but they're not ones I see growing into deeper relationships. So it's, and they're fluid lines. I mean, somebody may be in my group that I'm like, oh man, I had a chance to talk to them at a gathering and I'd like to get to know them better. So it may move, but it's important to know where people fit, which means, you're spending the bulk of your time with the people that are the most nutritious relationships for you. And it could be for your business, personally, whatever.
I like that. Nutritious relationships. I'm going to borrow that one if you don't mind.
I borrowed it from somebody else, I'm sure. So.
Let me ask you this, because you got the book coming out in August. You guys check it out. You're not for everyone. And but what's next for Kristin Andree with all the amazing things you got going on? What's next for you?
Here's what's been really interesting. I do a lot of speaking. I love speaking. It is one of my absolute favorite things to do. This little pandemic has put a bit of a kibosh on that. So we've been recording virtual stuff, which is totally new to me. I haven't done, and I mentioned Brendan Burchard earlier. I've taken basically any class he offers, I take, because he's such a wealth of knowledge in that. But I've been creating a lot of virtual content, whether it's courses or webinars or membership sites. So that's going to continue to grow. I see that being a larger portion of my business, because then I can meet with more people and interact with more people. And we built some online communities, so I can help more people that way. So that's probably what next is immediately. And then once we're able to get back to having in-person stuff, I am launching a few summits of my own that are going to just be different and fun. No more of this boring, I go and I listen to a speaker for 2 hours and I do absolutely nothing with it. So we've got some day-and-a-half symposiums that were already in the works, but we're obviously having to push them off about a year. So those would be the two biggest things, the online and the in-person summits.
Very cool. Well, how can our listeners connect with you online?
Oh, they definitely connect with me, because like I said, I love engaging on social. Everything is Andree Group, and Andree has 2 E's, Andree Group. And I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. So definitely connect and leave me a message, drop me a message, and I'll respond right back on all the business pages, which is awesome.
You guys heard it. You can connect with her. You're going to get a lot of positivity and some real speak, which will really help you out. I had a ton of fun today. I cannot wait for your Not For Everyone book to drop. And thank you so much for being here and bringing all the energy that you always do. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. That was great. I appreciate it. Look forward to connecting with everybody.
Truly my pleasure. All right, you guys, until next week, continue to transcend in life. Thank you so much for listening. If this content is delivering value to you, please make sure to subscribe, rate, and review us. That helps us build this community, and that is what we are all about. Building this community as big as we can, helping as many people as we can, and deliver as much value as possible. Be sure to head over to transcendinlifepodcast.com for information on my coaching courses, and make sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Let's Go Win 365. Let's go win and transcend in life.
This is the Transcend in Life podcast with your host, J.M. Ryerson, taking you from fear to freedom.